What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Montana Method Podcast. One more time, as always, your host, Nelson Rodriguez Jr., author, creator, director, and host of the Montana Method Podcast. Today, we have a great guest that I'm very excited to have on. He's all the way from Detroit, Michigan. It's actually warmer here than in Detroit, which is wild because it's 31 degrees out. Manny, what's up, buddy?
I'm good, Nelson. Thank you so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it,
bro. Of course. I'm excited to have you on. You got a great story. I'm all about great stories, so...
Yeah, we all have stories, man. They're none are better than the others. They're all different, but they're so unique at the same time, man.
Yeah, it's what makes us human, right?
I'm telling you, and
I tell you,
finding out you're from Miami, we were just talking and about the weather here. You're leaving 80, and like you said, I just left Detroit. It was 14. I'm sorry, it was 11 when we left this morning for the airport. It was 11.
It's like 31 here. That's warm for you.
Oh, I had the windows down. It was like, it was nice. But
he had the windows down at 31 degrees.
But no, seriously, brother, I really appreciate the opportunity to come on with you, share the story and all that stuff. Thank you.
It's going to be exciting. We're going to have a great time.
Yeah.
So, Manny, you're a man of many paths, I should say. You've lived many lives.
Wore, as they say, many hats.
Wore many hats.
Many hats.
Yeah.
And, everything, I mean, just jumping right into it. Like you said, I'm Manny Vitale from Detroit, Michigan, and I started a family. It's a support group family called My Fight or War.
I love it.
And it's dealing with people who are dealing with any type of addiction at all. Mental health issues, anything like that. And it doesn't even have to have a title or a diagnosis. Anything that's basically screwing up our lives. It's social media. It's not in person. And the reason that I formed it was because of my own personal issues, which we all have certain issues. And mine was a result of drugs and alcohol. You hear these stories when you hear alcoholic addict. We get that, you don't judge the book by the cover. So when you say alcoholic, you're picturing some guy with a bag, drinking, got the bottle,
of the road.
stumbling around full of puke. You say drug addict, you're picturing some guy in the alley with a needle, and a shoelace around his arm.
A bunch of holes in his arm,
But the facts are, man, the CEO of this company who just left the board meeting to go into the boardroom or the bathroom to do a line, or got into his limo to shoot up. Alcoholics, addicts, the same thing. And you hear about these terrible stories, childhoods, growing up. And some of them, unfortunately, true, where you have these broken families. You have a lot of abuse, domestic abuse, and stuff that go on that contribute to it. For me, now I did have issues. I came from a broken family. My biological father was very violent, very well known in the criminal world in Detroit and the United States. And like I said, very violent. And my mother, God bless her, is an angel. She's she's my hero. She got us out of there at a very young age and saved our lives, basically. But I can't use that as as an excuse why drugs and alcohol, because I had family that took us in. So, yeah, it was a broken family, but I had aunts and uncles and cousins. I was surrounded by love. And not only that, my mom did so much to support me with other activities growing up. So it's not like at 8 years old I'm seeing crack pipes and needles in the house. No, man, just the opposite. I played sports. I played hockey my whole life, which was good because it kept me out of that mainstream of drugs and alcohol up to a point. Drinking, as growing up, as a youngster, like me and my buddy would sneak downstairs behind Mom and Dad's bar. I think we were maybe 12, 13. You grab that bottle and you do one of these things. It didn't matter what it was.
Right.
And then you look at each other. It's like, are you drunk? It's like, I don't know. Are you? I don't know. And you take it. So it was like that experimental, fun stuff. And then as we got older, back in the 80s and stuff, when going through high school, so there wasn't the fentanyl and all that stuff.
It was more like the crack era and all that.
It was, for me, it was alcohol, cocaine, some like psychedelics like ecstasy and all that, but it wasn't like even like with the meth and the heroin and all that. Thank God that I never touched the needle or anything like that. For me, it was the alcohol, it was the coke, it was, that's as far as it got,
Right.
as far as going through. Then like you said, the late '90s when crack came around, and as you said, wore many hats. And that being said, I was with the Detroit Police Department for a while. And
Well, what made you want to go into law enforcement?
well, I've always loved helping people. Always just something about it. In fact, there was a thing in the high school when we were in ninth grade. We had to write our wish list. It was, what do you want to be by the time you go from ninth grade to your senior year? What are some goals you want? And then from there, I think it was like 21 or 25. What things you wanted?
Right.
And I remember I wrote, by my senior year, I wanted to be captain of the hockey team. And it was like by the time I was 21, I wanted to be an EMT. And then I can't remember the other ones. My senior year, I got to be captain of our high school hockey team. And then I did become an EMT. And just that first responder, not only helping people, but that I always loved that adrenaline. I just loved it, whether it was the adrenaline of sports, hockey, the hitting, the intensity. I love motorcycles and riding with crazy guys. I rode with a 1%er motorcycle club in Detroit, the Detroit Highwaymen. So I basically went from a lawman to an outlaw. And people,
Hell of a transition.
Oh, people were like, "Are you nuts?" But there was a lot that happened with the alcohol. For me, it really didn't, starting to become a. See, every time you say it didn't become a problem until I was like, in my 20s. Alcoholics and addicts, they lie and they fudge numbers. It's usually 5 years or more before that.
Yeah.
So I always check myself on that. But
so it happened when you were a teenager. You
know what? It was always there were issues where I look back on that I didn't think it was a big deal, but it was. I mean, here I remember I wasn't even old enough to drive yet, so I was like 13, 14, maybe 15, playing hockey. And I remember one of my buddies, Ma, was going to give us a ride. I remember sneaking going in the fridge, and there was a bottle of wine. And I don't know why, I just thought it'd be fun, just sit there. I'm guzzling this wine. And again, 13, 14, whatever it is. Well, next thing you know, I remember getting into her car. And she's like, yeah, "You've been drinking?" And I was like, because I didn't really. Oh, you can smell it.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's not normal. But I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. Now you hear these horror stories of people that are getting, just hooked, like drinking daily and stuff.
Yeah.
Mine wasn't that issue. Even like going through high school, I'd go to the parties with my buddies, and we'd be drinking. Smoking weed was a big thing back in the day, but for me, I'd smoke a joint, two things would happen. I'd either sit there and laugh my ass off, or I'd just fall asleep. It was just like, so that was...
Party's over.
Party's over. So mine was drinking. And I think the first time I ever did a line, I think I was 20, 19, 20 years old, and I never did before. And I remember I was at a bachelor party, and a buddy had it. And I was like, all right, man, whatever, I'll give it a try. And I remember afterwards I went, "This is the greatest thing ever." Shit. Oh, it's like, "Hey, who wants another beer? Who wants another shot? Hey, who wants to go jogging? Who wants to do what?" You felt almost like invincible. And, that became an issue.
It like flipped a switch.
It was something that I'd never experienced before. Well, just like we all have a first. I never experienced being drunk until I was drunk for the first time.
Right.
So all these things. When I say, just like every other kid growing up, well, no, every other kid doesn't do that. So I don't want to bunch us all in together, but this was me and me alone. I can only speak for myself, but, the group I hung with, we were all athletes, hockey players, football players. It was mainly a lot of drinking. And, I did get older. It did start to increase. Like I said, I worked in a major hospital in Detroit. I worked in the ER. I worked in the oncology ward, so I was always attracted to helping.
Right.
Even though I had this little wild hair up my ass where I just loved to go over that line and stuff, and but I still loved just helping.
Right.
And so I did that at the hospital. And I remember I had a patient who was a Detroit police officer, and he was actually in recruiting. I told him about my uncles that worked there, and he actually knew him. He goes, "I know your Uncle Rich." And he goes, I work in recruiting. I wrote my name down in the card in recruiting, gave it to him, forgot about it. And it was about 8 months later, my mom calls me. She goes, "I got a message, and I don't want to give it to you." I was like, "What?" And she goes, "Sergeant Tomlinson from the Detroit Police want you to call." And I was like, "Shit, what I do? You hit rewind? And
Yeah.
I was just like, wait a minute. And I call, and sure as shit, they pulled my name, started the process. So that next thing you know, one thing led to another. I ended up passing the background check. Next thing you know, I'm in the police academy, become a Detroit police officer. And I knew I was screwed. Actually, how fitting, Nelson, to do your show on Friday the 13th and telling this story right now, because I graduated from the Detroit Police Department on Friday the 13th.
That's why
I was assigned to the 13th precinct. My badge number, I wear right here with my tat, is 3130, and I was born on Devil's Night.
Look at that.
So my one partner is like, "Get out of the car." And I'm like, "Dave, man, I'm good luck. We made it to our first shift."
That's funny.
But it was an intense time.
How old were you when you became a cop officially?
I was a late bloomer, man. I was 27.
27.
And there were guys who were retiring in their early 30s, mid-30s, that came on right out of
Really
high
young,
school.
like
Yeah.
18, right?
Oh, 18, 19 years old, they're coming into the academy. And so at this point, the drinking obviously never went away. And obviously the drugs, though, because now you're getting piss tests and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The drinking did definitely increased. And a lot of it, people will say, as far as first responders, the things that you see. I had some...
That's actually what my next question was. Before
Sure.
we move on to the cop career,
Sure.
did you see anything that kind of prepped you for being a cop as an EMT? Did you see people
Yes.
get, just get hurt really bad, or?
The good thing for me is I worked at St. John Hospital in Detroit, which is a major hospital trauma center in Detroit. We saw everything from a slip and fall to a multiple shooting, stabbing, mutilation, machetes, gruesome attacks, everything
crap.
at this
That's
hospital.
crazy.
So working there, and again, I started there like 19 years old, 18 years
Yeah,
old.
you're still a kid.
And I'm seeing this firsthand, and I'm like, and instead of going, "Oh," I was like, "This is so freaking cool." So I
crazy.
started taking classes, but my first night working ER, we had this older gentleman and his wife in their late 80s walking across the street by a busy intersection. We're in Detroit. She got hit by a car and just mutilated. That was my first ER shift. I mean, I've been there for a while, but it was my first rotation. When we did the log roll to do the plates underneath for x-rays and all that, I had the lower half. So I had to roll the hips, the legs stabilize. And when I did that, you heard cracking and all that. And their legs were so badly broken that they just all shifted and moved.
Oh my God.
And her face, I mean...
Her facial expression?
Oh, well, she was out of it because she was hit at, they estimated, over 70 miles an hour, 80 plus years old.
Oh my God.
We worked on her in triage for about 3 hours. It was terrible. And I remember at one point, it got real quiet all of a sudden, and I turned around, and this older gentleman ended up being her husband. I didn't know this, but they walked out and got him and told him to come in because she was going to pass. He walked in, and it was talk about thrown into the fire. My first shift, and it didn't scare me away. It actually wanted me to get even more involved, but it was so intense. But seeing stuff like that, and not only that, but then when I was with the police department, I had guys that I worked with who were killed in the line of duty. A very good close friend of mine, Pat, was on a call and ended up getting shot in the head and died right there. Had another friend who was killed, and this is my badge, and these are their badges in the back, ghost badges with their black band that I wear for life. And you go to tell stories, and I remember when I first came on, I remember I came home and my first shift, and you're full of piss and vinegar, boy,
Yeah.
And my first day, my first call that I got was a gun run. This guy comes running up between these houses, didn't see us. We were in our car, and he's got a gun. They're like, Manny, get him. I was a jump man. So here I am, first probably a couple hours on the job, chasing this guy. We're fighting. All this going on. Later on, it was a very combative day. A lot of hands on that day. And I remember
your first day. This is your first day on the job.
Welcome to Detroit. That's Dave Wilkerson. God bless him.
Oh man.
Welcome to Detroit, Manny. And,
this is the 80s.
This was 94. I was
94.
class 94D.
Okay.
And like I said, 13th precinct, boy, it was a very, very tough area. We had the Brewster projects, the Jeffrey projects, high gang activity in Mexican Village. We had all these different areas that were very high intensity.
Is that anywhere near like the? I'm not familiar with Detroit, but like 7 Mile, 8 Mile, all that stuff.
It's further into Detroit,
okay.
Further inner city. Remember you're saying how when you were by the off the river?
Yeah.
It's by the Ambassador Bridge there.
Yeah.
Just west of that is like Mexican Town and all that,
okay,
and there's different areas. And so it was very intense, and it was very violent. And this was my first day, and I remember coming home, and I remember my girlfriend, as soon as I came in, she was just looking at me and just grabbed me and hugged me. I made it home alive, and she didn't really appreciate my choice to do that type of work. And I remember I was like, "You're not going to believe this." The first run was a gun run, and then this guy pulled a knife, and we're fighting. And all of a sudden, she's looking at me, and she goes, "I don't want to hear it." And she got upset, started to cry. And, when you look back at that, so here I couldn't talk about what happened. I had to keep it all in. And then, so what do? You call your partner. You call your guys you work with, your peers. You meet at the bar. And now, so that was going on there. The things you see, it definitely affects you. And, and say what you will, people will make excuses why they drink.
Right.
Seeing what a first responder sees, you try to forget it. There's things that PTSD, there's to this day, there's times I'll wake up swinging, I'll wake up screaming, I'll wake up sweating, cold sweat. And it's just terrifying. So, when you hear people say, it can't be that bad. God bless you. I hope you never experience it. And,
I think, for me, it's, there's things you can't unsee in life. You know what I mean?
You know what? Yeah.
It's like going to war, getting shot, becoming a cop and being in those situations. There's things even being a surgeon or a doctor where someone dies on, like you're trying to help somebody save their life and they die. Things like that, you can't unsee that. There's no undoing that,
You can't unsee it.
And there's no real way I don't think humans are designed to go through those things constantly, like what you did, like day in and day out. It's not, we're not wired that way,
Yeah, and the thing is too, I'll never forget in the academy, they were talking about our adrenaline and our intensity level. When you start your shift, you're in the locker room, you're getting dressed, so you're putting on a bulletproof vest, you're putting on a gun, a knife, of this, and so all of a sudden the intensity, your anxiety is going up. You get in your car through roll call. You get that first call. It goes up. Maybe a gun run. It might be this. It goes up. So your whole shift, instead of going down, it keeps going up. So the intensity is there so much that the only time it goes down is after the shift's completely over. Enter drugs and alcohol to numb the senses. And so drinking and became more of an issue. And unfortunately, to the point where I was making very bad decisions. Fortunately, I realized it, and I had to make a choice. And I know of situations where people on the job were under the influence because of drugs and alcohol, because of whatever reason, and made very bad calls in the field. And not only the decisions they made cost the lives of their partner. And there's no way, I as screwed up in the head as I was at that time with everything going on, I remember there's no way I could let that happen. So I wanted that job so bad. When I'll never forget that day when they put the badge on my chest, that feeling that I had. But because of my actions, it cost me what I loved. And I made a conscious decision and I left the job. And because the thought of me doing something because of drugs or alcohol, costing someone that I love their life, thank God that I had a conscience at that point left.
Right.
So that was very tough. So needless to say, what a great excuse to drink more now. Poor me, just lost this job because of, so drink more, do more drugs. Now I don't have to worry. I did take more classes for EMT. So I basically turned in my police car for an ambulance. And I was in a rig as an EMT riding. But you're still seeing terrible things.
Horrible things, yeah. How many years were you on the force as a police officer?
I was only there under 2. And, I blew up my knee. So I've had so many surgeries. We were talking a little bit out there. I have to have 2 more now on my shoulder. It's going to make over 40-plus surgeries that I've had because of injuries. Hips, knees, shoulder replaced, multiple back surgeries. You're talking about, plus the violence with the motorcycle club, and then just life in general. Once drugs and alcohol take over, I had that I don't give a fuck attitude about anybody or anything. I didn't care if I knew you, if you were related. I didn't care. If I hurt you physically, emotionally, I didn't care because I didn't care about me. I was involved in numerous altercations and fights. And this one, I had this guy. It was basically a bullshit chicken shit move. But it was my fault. I ended up turning my back on this dude, and there was a confrontation going on at the time. Well, I turned back around, and there was a gun right here, shoved right in my face. I spin around, we start fighting, and all of a sudden, boom, he shoots. And it goes right by, grazes right through here with the barrel. And it was like right here, so the concussion, it busted my orbital bone, shattered it. I was out, I'm done, I'm on the ground. And they ended up catching him, got him for attempted murder. They cut me open, put a plate here, and you would think something like that would kind of open up your eyes.
Yeah.
The only thing I thought of was revenge. I remember laying in trauma when I found out I was going to live, and I could still see, what could have happened and all that. They're like, you better realize how. And I was like, screw that. I had other things in mind. To the point where it was less than a year later, I was involved in another confrontation, and got sliced with a razor knife right down the side of my face.
In the same eye?
Same eye. Same eye. Same side. Same face. Same face. Same eye. Yeah, right down the side. And, it was, again, didn't care. Didn't flinch. It was just like, it happens. Well, no, it doesn't happen. I was trying to rationalize it. Well, it's normal. Doesn't everyone,
Yeah, it's totally normal to get stabbed in the face.
Yeah. So all of this is going on. The drinking now and the drugs is just going through the roof.
How much alcohol or drugs are you consuming on a daily basis at this point?
For me, too, it was always beer. I always loved the beer. And then when it came to like
Hard
drinks,
liquor?
it would be shots.
Okay.
And it would always be beer, a couple shots, then a couple more shots. Flip-flop at the very end, it was beer. Why would I get beer to take up room when I could drink liquor?
Right.
So towards the end, before I got taken to the hospital by ambulance, it was a fifth and a half of whiskey at night. Sometimes 2, if I could stay awake. 2/5, a fifth and a half of whatever, vodka, rum, anything I could get. I mean, it was intense to the point.
That's a lot of booze.
It's a lot of booze, and you'll hear people say, you've been blessed, and I've been blessed many times. First of all, the shooting, the stabbing. I had my appendix burst when I was with the police department. I was able to make it to the hospital in time for that. I had sepsis. They went to do an exam on me, or a test on me, did improper insertion with an IV. Next thing you know, this swells up and starts tracking. They rushed me to OR. They're like, we're going to do everything we can for you, but we don't know. I had that happen. I had one of my surgeries went bad. They went to take the tube out, and my lungs filled with blood, and they didn't realize it. And I mean, all of this going on.
You went into like respiratory arrest?
Yeah. And so I woke up in ICU, and they said that we went to take the tube out, and your throat spasmed shut, and we couldn't get the tube back down, and you couldn't breathe. What they didn't realize, I was having negative pressure build up. It was basically like drowning, so all the fluid. So I've got scar tissue in my lungs. Scar in my lungs. So all of these things that the doctor said that 3 of these you could have died right there. Still didn't open my eyes. What finally, you hear people talk about rock bottom, and I made this decision. This decision was made for me. I had no choice. I was, just to kind of go back real quick here. I had my best friend that I was telling you about downstairs. Are you drunk yet?
Right.
My best friend, my brother Jerry, known him since 4th grade. We did everything together, including drink. And Jerry died in my arms in the hospital bed. I crawled into his bed and held him when he died in my arms. He died from organ failure, kidneys, pancreas, liver, because of drinking. Wow. I got a phone call from one of our friends and said, Jerry's in trouble, man. And he goes, have you seen him lately? Because of our schedules. It wouldn't be unusual to go a month or two not seeing each other with our schedules. I went over there, went downstairs, and he was yellow. He just
organ failure.
Jaundice, yep.
Liver failure, right? When you're yellow.
I'm like, what is going on? And by this time, I mean, my other friend was there, and I go, we got to get you to the hospital. He goes, yeah, I know, but I'm not going. I go, Jerry, you're going to die. I know. Just nothing. The next day, we were over there again trying to convince him. My other buddy goes, tell him what's going on, Jerry. And I go, what's happening? He goes, I'm pissing blood, and I'm shitting blood.
God.
So now he's hemorrhaging. We finally get him to the hospital, and he was having issues with his family, so they had me as the go-between with the doctors. And so we're sitting there, and he gets in there, yellow as can be. Now he's starting to hallucinate because of the liver failure. They do the exam, and afterwards, the young female doctor, she's like, you're a very sick man. And she just stopped, and she looked at me, and she goes, can I talk to you in the hall? And I'm like, so what are we looking at? She started crying, and she said, there's nothing we can do. It was a matter of a week, a couple of weeks. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I remember walking in to see my brother, and he looked at me. He goes, Manny, what'd she say? And I go, Jerry, she said you're ugly and quit hitting on her. And I kind of laughed, and he goes, I love you, brother. He goes, I'm never going to drink again. And when I get out of here, and I'm just like staring at him. And needless to say, he's going downhill, man. The next few days, we got the call to come in. So about 8 of us were there for him, and standing there and just watching him take his last breaths. And I just looking, he was 40-some years old at this time, known him since
young.
4th grade. Yeah.
Wow.
So I remember I got right in there, got in his hospital bed, just held him, and he died right in my arms. And I remember telling the guys, I'm like, what a terrible way to die. Those words are important because now fast forward to me with my issues. I had a friend come over. I was at my parents' house staying with them because I was helping take care of my dad who passed away from ALS. So I was living there. But the drinking was out of control to the point where a friend came over and she looked at me and she goes, your eyes are yellow to me. And I go,
wow.
I know. She goes, you got to go to the doctor. And I go, no. She goes, you're going to die. And I go, I don't care. Same thing.
It's the same exact thing that happened with you.
She leaves. The next day, I did my routine, drove down the street to the liquor store, walked in, and these are people the owners who have known me quite a while. I was, within less than 12 hours, I was yellow from head to toe.
Wow.
Yellow, not like a tint, where you could maybe tell. She turned around and saw me. She was like, man, you're yellow. And I just glared at her. And as I'm trying to pay, I'm like, shaking. I get the bottle, go out to my truck, and damn near chipped every tooth trying to get just the shaking so bad. I'm guzzling this damn bottle in the parking lot. And I somehow made it back to, my house where I was staying. And I remember passing out. And later that evening, I woke up and I was just delirious, like yelling and something. My mom woke up and I ended up falling back onto the bed. Next thing I know, I'm in an ambulance going to the hospital. I got there, and now things are just, I'm in and out because of the severity of what's going on. And they said there's nothing we can do for him. We got to transfer him to Henry Ford, Maine in Detroit, which is a major trauma center. Take me there. I was there a total of just about 30 days, 15 in ICU. I coded a couple times. Just went from bad to worse to worse. And one day, the two specialists for the organs, man and woman, came in, and it was just the gentleman at this time. Well, gentleman, Dr. Death, as I called him. He comes in, and he wakes me up in my room alone. And he goes, I got to talk to you. There's something going on. And he starts giving me statistics with numbers. He goes, 6 out of 10 people with numbers like yours don't make it. I started laughing. Well, I'm glad I'm not one of those 6. He goes, no, you don't understand. Your numbers are worse. He goes, there's nothing we can do for you. And I'm like, he gets up and he goes, I'm sorry. And he walks out. I'm sitting there. I'm like, did that just happen? I mean, I'm on Dilaudid because the pancreatitis was so bad. Plus, my liver's failing, so I'm hallucinating. So I ended up passing out, fall asleep. And a little while later, I look, and his associate, the younger female, walks in. As soon as I saw the look in her face, I looked at her, and I'm like, oh, my God, is this real? And she goes, it's real, Manny. I'm sorry. And I go, please, there's got to be something you can do. And she actually started crying. She says, you've been in organ failure this whole time. In the last 36 hours, your pancreas, kidneys, and liver have completely shut down. They are no longer functioning. There's no coming back from that. Hospice has taken over your care. You've got less than 6 weeks to live. And I just sat there. And
Jerry all over again.
All over again. And then I had to pick up the phone and call my mom and my family and my loved ones and say, hey, how you doing? Can you come on into the hospital? Yeah, I'm going to be dead in 6 weeks. I mean, how do you make that phone call? And I had to do it. So they come in. Obviously, they think I'm hallucinating. And then the doctors are like, there's nothing we can do for him. He's going to die. So they take the blood. They're doing blood work they were going to give to the hospice care nurses to transfer my paperwork. Well, next thing you know, they come back in later on, and there's a few more doctors, and they're taking more blood. And they're like, well, we got to do some details with hospice, so you're going to be here a few more days before we transfer you home to die. They're still telling you to go home to die. So I'm laying there, not knowing if I close my eyes, I may not wake up.
Am I going to wake up, yeah?
So, but they're coming in every 2 to 4 hours, taking blood. And every time they come in, there's more doctors.
How many days have you been in the hospital already?
30. Well, up until that point, it was a 30 total. But this part here were the last 7 days of those 30. Okay. As now they're coming in every 2 to 4 hours, taking blood, and they're still not telling me why. So by the 7th day, my room is full of doctors. And they're looking at me like I'm an exhibit in a zoo. And I'm like, and I look, and the Dr. Death, as I call him, is at the foot of the bed just staring at me. And he just starts smirking. And then he starts laughing. And I go, you evil fuck. I go, you're sending
I'm dying. What are you laughing at, you motherfucker?
And he went to say something. And all of a sudden he started laughing more. And a couple other doctors started to laugh. I'm like,
these sons of bitches.
I'm like, if I could get up, I'd kill you. The female doctor comes over and sits down on the side of the bed, and she starts crying. She holds my hand, and I'm like,
what is going on
here? And she
here?
goes, Manny, we're sending you home, but not to die. She goes, we're sending you home to live. I'm like, what? She goes, that's why all these doctors and specialists are here. She goes, we did your blood work, and we saw there was movement in your levels, which there shouldn't have been. So they did a redo and a recheck, and every time there was more movement and more movement, to the point by the 7th day, my pancreas, kidneys, and liver, the blood work was normal.
So in 7 days, you went
I
from
went from
being given a death notice, hey, you're going to die in 6 weeks, to 7 days later being completely normal.
Completely, and they said, I mean, all these they're clapping and shit. And I'm just like, what the one doctor, she said, by the way, 6 weeks, when we told you that was to try to give you enough fight because we knew you had family coming in from out of town that you wanted to see you. We were going to try to help motivate you to live. She goes, honestly, we thought you had less than 48 hours to live.
Wow.
And now I'm on no medication. They're like, when you have complete organ failure, multiple organs, kidney failure, you don't come back. And they said, you better look up and keep looking up because this doesn't happen. And all these doctors are in the room, they're coming up talking in articles, and it was insane. And by the grace of God, man, January 9th coming up is going to be the 2-year anniversary of my Fight Our War, which I formed. January 27th is going to be my 5-year anniversary of sobriety. And it's just, it's incredible.
How long ago was that?
That, what?
When you got that, when you got that news that you were going to live?
It was January 2020 is when all this happened. So,
wow.
Yeah, so it's going on 5 years. 5 years of sobriety. And, so it ended up being, it was one of those things where, it's just like, but looking back now, you talk about the PTSD with the police and all that stuff. Here, you're told you're going to be dead in 6 weeks or less than that. So here I am laying in this room. I'd start to fall asleep, and I'd try to stay awake because I didn't know I was going to die. And now, all of a sudden, you're going to live. But, it was insane, brother. It was insane.
What kind of I've never even had – this is really crazy because I've never had someone who's literally about to die on my podcast. What was mentally like – can you describe kind of like the thoughts – or maybe, I don't know if you were still hallucinating. Like, what was going on mentally,
Yeah, it was so insane. The day before that they told me that I was going to die, that morning before, I remember I woke up, and it was just like, I had this, like, clarity. It was like, man, I feel good. I really didn't say anything because it was like, this is weird. I just felt different in a positive way, not knowing why. And here, the next morning, they tell me, well, you're going to die. So when they told me, it was crazy, Nelson. There was no tears. There was no, God, please, screaming for mercy. There was no begging for forgiveness. It was nothing. It was just like this giving in to, all right.
Like a peace?
This is it. I finally, after all that I've done, this is finally.
You made peace with it.
I don't know if it was making peace with it or just, I talked to a few people about it, or even up to that point, just saying, fuck it. I can't do anything about it because it was the most empty feeling. Most people would be like, well, you must have been like, oh my God. And I was like, no. It was, and then when they were like, if you even think of drinking anything, you'll be dead by they're like, if you grab a bottle, you'll die. You'll just be
right.
Over the top. This is 2020 now. When COVID shut the world down.
2 months later,
they said you need intensive rehab. You need 24/7 rehabilitation. Well, this is COVID, so here I go to the place. They're like, we're closed, man. There's nowhere to go. You can't go anywhere because COVID. So I never had any type of counseling. I never had a sponsor. I never went to any group therapy. You couldn't because of COVID.
Besides the fear of dying, that was really the only.
Yeah, it was nothing. And the thing is, by the grace of God, I have never once had any withdrawal. I never once had any craving, like, oh my God. I go to the bars, I go to the casino, and I go, people are drinking and all that doesn't bother me at all. I mean, to say that I have been blessed is such an understatement. I have been tremendously blessed in so many ways by the people who are still in my life and by the things that have happened to me. And there's so much more, but we'll just have to get together and do more shows together.
That is by far the most insane thing I might have ever had on my show. To think that, what's funny? I have a friend that his mother had cancer. She had terminal colon cancer. She was, one night he gets a call, and he's like, some doctor in some ER is telling, you need to come here. Your mother's not doing well. So he rushes to the hospital. She's in a hospital bed, and they haven't told her anything yet, right? So he's waiting outside for the doctor, and the doctor says, your mother's going to die. She's got like 6 months to live. And he looks at him in the face, and he says, okay, this is the only thing I'm asking of you. You are not allowed to tell that to my mother. You have to let me and my sister tell her. And he's like, no, you don't understand. I have an ethical responsibility. And he says, I don't care. You're not going to. To the point where he gets in a physical altercation with the doctor because the doctor won't shut his mouth. He grabs him, and he's like, listen, bro, I'm going to snap your back in half if you tell my mother that she's going to die. You have to let me tell her. They understand that he's like, in a hot emotional state and all that, so they remove him from the hospital, and they tell him, go cool off. You can come back tomorrow. He told his sister, stay in the room, and if you see a doctor come in, you take him outside and you talk to him outside. Do not let him tell mom that she's dying. What does he do? The next day he comes in, he brings in funny movies. He's always making her laugh, staying positive. Never tells her she's going to die. She's still alive today.
I'm telling you,
it's crazy. I can't even describe what that is or how that happens. It's one of those things where it's insane,
I'm born and raised Catholic. I am not one of those guys that runs around the Bible telling you quoting scriptures. I don't know any. But my faith in God is so strong. People that know me personally know that it's that strong. And I remember when they told me this, that I was going to die. I remember telling my mom, and she just looked at me, and there was no reaction. I was like, did you hear me? She goes, no. I'm like, no, you don't understand. And I told her again. She goes, I'll never forget it. She goes, it's not up to the doctors. She goes, it's up to God when you die. I'll never forget that. And, here it is 5 years later. And just like your friend's mother, these are doctors. They're going by test results. They're going by
numbers.
By numbers, statistics. It's, I've reached out ever since starting My Fighter War, different stories and stuff like that. And you hear stories, just like you said, about your friend's mother, just about like with myself. And, it's not up to anyone, besides God and us when we go.
There's a divine force that has our back that's beyond our comprehension.
Exactly.
And humans, you're not meant to understand the power behind that divine force that like it has your back. You know what I mean? It's not meant to be understood.
No.
It's not meant to be understood. It's not meant to be held. It's not meant to be used. None of that. It's meant to just you believe that it's there. That's it. Faith, right?
Faith.
And funny enough, one of the I've always believed in God, but obviously when bad things happen is when you really understand,
Yeah.
So going to prison for me, getting indicted, going through that whole process made me really understand just how much God has my back.
Isn't it? It's insane.
Yeah, because at first you're angry because bad things happen and all that, but then it goes full circle, and you get through it, and you come out the other side, and then it's like, oh, but if I didn't go to prison, I would have never met this person. If I didn't go to prison, I never would have done this. It's same thing for you. If this didn't happen to me, that person, and you see how it all connects in the end.
Exactly.
And it's like almost like a beautiful puzzle that comes together.
And it's, you pretty much explain it like when I explain it to our people in our family. My Fight, Our War. I'm like, listen, you talk about addiction and all that, and there's a lot of anger that comes out with addiction and with the evil that it does to us and our families and loved ones. I'm like, well, but think about it. We have to thank addiction too. And they're like, what? If it wasn't for addiction, I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have met all these people I met at My Fight, Our War. Because of addiction and the terrible things that happened that we did, we came together And now we're fighting, instead of our families and ourselves, we're fighting addiction. So, yeah, it's just...
in my case, it's the same. If I never would have went to prison, I never would have met you. I never would have became friends with Ian, like...
Yeah, that's exactly it.
It's crazy to say that the worst things that happen to us might be the best things that happen to us.
And then you hear that door shut, and
Another
then
one
even,
opens. Yep.
you may think you're on this path, and it's I'm finally on this right path.
Yeah.
And then that door shuts. It's like, but this is the right one. And then maybe some shitty things start happening. And you're like, but I was doing so good. And then next thing you know, wait a minute.
Life changes completely.
Yes. And you nailed it too, Nelson. Faith. And that's huge with me. And I've been tested quite a few times in the last year. And there's times where I just sit back and it's like, let go, let God, believe. Trust and believe. And,
100%.
That's what I got to do.
Yeah, it's just understanding that life and the process of this, has been around way before you and I were alive, and it's going to be around way before you and I die.
Yes.
So for us to sit here and have the arrogance of saying, no, it should happen like this. Nah, I don't think it should. You've only been around here, 50-something years, 30-something years. Who are you to tell life and God and the force that controls this how to do things?
Oh, man. When it started for me, just accepting life, man. This happened for a reason.
Exactly.
As messed up and as mad and angry and as screwed up as things appear, it's meant to happen for some reason.
100%.
And it's just like, and then once you get to that point and accept it, man, beautiful things happen.
My definition of being positive is interesting because most people think being positive is smiling and being happy all the time and being like a Pollyanna. My definition of being positive is just understanding no matter what and no matter how ugly things get, no matter how bad it is, just understand and keep in your mind that things happen for a reason. You're not meant to understand the reason. It doesn't need to be revealed to you because honestly, it's probably none of your business. Because if you knew the reason, you'd probably mess it up.
Oh, sure. You'd try to change it.
You'd probably screw it up. Exactly.
Well, if this is what I'm supposed to do, if I do it this way, it'll be even better. No, you're right. It's like, no. Sometimes ignorance is bliss.
Yes.
And, we are meant to be, go on faith and belief. And, ever since, and I still, to this day, man, I mean, I'm human. I am not perfect. And, you get those moments where you're just like, come on, but that's where in the past I would have reacted differently.
Right.
Now it's like, take that step back, and, I still lose my, temper every now and then. I mean, we all do, but now, I take that time and think before I speak. I think before
100%.
I act instead of just reacting. And, I look things through, clear eyes and a clear mind and a clear conscience and, and the people that I've met, like you said, all through this whole wild social media frenzy that I never in a million years thought I'd be part of. And, but by the grace of God, man, we're sitting here at the table together. So things are meant to be.
If you could point out one major difference right before, like the month before you had that whole experience in the hospital and who you are today, what's the biggest difference?
I think one thing that kind of really affected me, and not only in my heart, mind, and soul, was my dad, who passed away from ALS. Just a terrible, evil disease, man. My dad was this bull. He was this big old Italian tough son of a gun. Boy, I tell you what, this man would move mountains, literally. This disease just ate him alive. And I'll never forget one day I'm helping take care of him. And I was in my own little pity party. Here I am helping wash him and clean him. And he knew something was up, and he looked at me. And he goes, what can I do to make your life better? As he's laying there dying. I'll never forget that. And it was just like, okay. There's got to be, there's a higher power, and there's a reason. And for me, I need to focus more. I try to be more observant on everything as far as what I see and what I hear, and just try to not overdo it, but just try to understand things a little bit clearer now, and just that clarity. It's nice.
Yeah, definitely. Drugs, alcohol. It doesn't even, but whatever, whatever it is, whatever your problem or your drug of choice is, it could be food, it could be whatever. We use it as this substance to kind of make us it's an escape, right? You're running away from your life, and instead of just stopping for a second and paying attention, it's clarity, right? When you don't have any of that stuff, you're not using anything to like numb yourself. You have clarity and you see the things going on, and therefore you can react better, make better choices, a better understanding of what's actually going on. Instead of that, we choose to run away and escape, which is like a human reaction. This whole fight or flight thing that goes back to the caveman days, right?
Exactly.
So I like that you say clarity.
Yeah.
That word clarity is like everything.
And I try to really hold true to that, because even now when things happen and I start to get that frustration, you can just feel it's like take a step back, and I'm here, I'm still alive. I got on the plane from Detroit in this freezing weather, and I got to meet you. It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day.
You remind me of something I heard a long time ago, and I say this about my life before prison, and I think it can literally apply to you. A version of me died a long time ago, so this new life is free. This new life I'm living now, it's all extra. I'm blessed to be living this life that I have now.
It's a gift.
So that version of you died in the hospital. That old version of Manny. And this version it's like a newborn baby. It's like a life I was never supposed to live. So it's all extra. It's all for free. It's all like bonus. It's like a bonus life. So every day I get here, it's amazing. It's a blessing.
It's like your birthday every day.
It's like you can't believe you live this life,
Oh, you sit there. And I had a buddy one time that I rode with. He goes, he's sober now as well. He goes, can you believe we're still alive? After the stupid shit that we did, we're still alive. And he is very into helping and recovery in so many different organizations. He's just a great, does amazing things. And we were talking about it. He goes, whoever would have thought when we were doing our very off-the-wall, crazy, violent things back in the day that we thought was just the greatest feeling in the world, to be so out of control, that we would be so blessed as we are right now. And, that's where we're at.
Like I said, man, it's so crazy to think that you and I could be this blessed and feel this good, live such good lives after almost dying and going to prison.
Just sit there. Here we are, enjoying
great lives.
And people, like you said, if they look at the backstory and that added, just the backstory.
Like if I didn't tell my story or your story, if we weren't there to speak it and they just read it, they'd be like, "Oh, this guy must be miserable."
Man, I don't want any part of these guys. They're a miserable son of a bitch. And instead, it's just the opposite.
It's just like two guys.
Two guys. And I never sit there and I tell. One thing with our family. I'm not a life coach. I'm not a licensed counselor. I don't have any degrees and all that.
That's what I love about podcasting. We're just two normal guys. We're just telling our story.
I said, what we'll do is we'll offer suggestions to help. And if because I've met people doing shows, and they're like, well, you need to do this if you want to stay sober. You need. It's like, well, who are you? And I tell people, you need to do what works for you. We're here to support you in whatever you decide.
Exactly.
So it's
and it's cool that you have a different experience, because obviously a lot of people, which is not wrong, and I by no means went through NA or AA, so I'm not telling you whether it's right or wrong. And that system obviously works because it works for a lot of people, but it's cool to see someone who did it differently.
Yeah.
Because there's no wrong, life doesn't have a manual. You know what I mean? There's no I can't give you all the right answers. However, you can see different people who did it different ways and figure out what's right for you,
That's what I tell people. Just because your buddy or your family member says, this is what works for me, this is what you got to do, you just said it. No, you need to do what works for you.
100%.
So
definitely.
That's what we do.
Manny, it's been a pleasure having you on, brother.
Oh, man,
we definitely 100% have to do this again.
Oh, we're going to get you on, and I know how much you love the cold, so we'll get you to Detroit. You know what? In fact, maybe we'll do something better. We'll fly to Miami.
Oh, now we're talking. Yeah, see,
So,
come on down and enjoy some tropical weather, buddy.
Say, you know what? You got your studio there. If you got your place there, we'll fly down. We'll come to Miami and see you.
In a few months.
Hey.
Yeah, in the springtime. There we go. Now we're talking.
Well, let's keep in touch.
So, Manny, I always ask 3 questions to wrap up my podcast. So, first question, what inspires you?
Well, first and foremost, God and the blessings that I've been given, but more than that is seeing the positive results that other people are sharing with me. That by what I'm doing, or what we are doing as a family at My Fight Our War, how it's changing them for a positive, in a positive way, is a beautiful thing.
Definitely, I share the sentiment because I'm a podcaster as well, and you get messages or the comments. It's like, oh my God, I started watching your podcast and this is inspiring. I love, it's just simple little things like that.
Well, Nelson, I got to tell you one message I got, and this was about 4 months after I started doing this. I got this message, and it said, "You have no idea what you just did," and it was from the person and her daughter messaging me. It said, "You saved my life." And it said, I watched one of your videos over and over tonight. And then the daughter chimed in, and she was like, you saved my mom's life, going on and on. She was going to kill herself that night.
Wow.
And the daughter and the mother messaged me telling me that she was going to do this. Wow. And that watching the video, something in there sparked. And I was just like, whoa. Wow. So that's when I tell people, help any way you can, and just because your story may not be as sensational as someone else's story, please still share it, because something you say that you may think is minor could save someone's life.
That's amazing. I haven't had anything like that, but I've had friends who are still doing time or just got out and don't really have hope in their lives, and they see me doing my thing, and they're like, man, it's great what you're doing. It's really inspiring. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and I see you doing something, so I know I can do something. I don't know what it is yet. I've got to message those messages, especially being someone who went to prison, and I completely understand how he feels. Like, that's
just it. They know how you feel, and you know how they feel.
100%.
Yeah.
In your case, you know how other people who deal with addiction feel.
Yeah.
I know exactly. As someone who's laying in prison, they think their life is over. It's over. You're done. Stick a fork in them.
Yep.
And then to see somebody who went to like Ian is the most inspiring guy on the I saw him, and it's funny because I found his page right out of prison. So he did for me what I'm doing for other people now.
Paying it forward.
I can't even put it into words.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's insane. Manny, second question. What's next for you?
What's next is there are no limits, man. I always say that.
I love that.
I tell people, the only limits that we have are the limits that we put on ourselves. And there are no setbacks, only great comebacks waiting to happen.
I love it.
I want My Fight Our War to be at the top of everything. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I don't mean that in a me way. I mean that in a we as a family way, to get the message out there that addiction is not a death sentence. That, as a family, there's nothing we can't get through together. And so the next step is just onward and upward.
I love it. All right, brother. So last question. How do you want to be remembered?
Ooh.
It's a big one.
That is a big one, because in my past, the things that I've said, the things I've done, the people that I have hurt, from friends, family, my mother, someone who cares, and that change can happen in any of us, that nothing is impossible, and never give up on someone, and just believe in yourself, and never stop believing in yourself. As long as you have faith in God above, and as long as you have faith in your heart, we are unstoppable.
Couldn't have said it better myself, brother. Definitely going to do this again.
Oh, without a doubt.
You got a friend in Miami, whenever you need him.
Well, you got a friend in cold-ass Detroit. But I tell you what, once April, May comes around, You know,
Yeah,
we're
we'll
in
get
our
together for
70s.
sure. For sure.
But yeah, definitely looking forward.
I'm in the middle of building my new studio. I should be ready by then, and then I'll have you right over.
Hey,
yeah,
you just let us know when, we'll fly there.
I love it, brother. Alrighty. Oh, before we get going, tell people how they can connect with you.
Definitely. Please check us out at My Fight Art War. And also, I want to give a shout out to Matt Cronin, our producer and our editor, doing a great job. So check out everything at YouTube. Go to My Fight Art War. And if you could please subscribe to us there, it'd really help us out a lot, as well as TikTok at My Fight Art War. If you could go there, follow us, it'd be very helpful, as far as Instagram as well.
Alrighty, guys. So that's another episode of the Montana Method Podcast. Special guest Manny Vitale. Push it to the limit. The world is yours. If you're not chasing a dream, life is meaningless, guys. Catch you on the next one. Say goodnight to the bad guy.
There you go. Man, that was...
I've been out here hustling all my life. Every day we get into it. Really out here in these streets. That's day and night. Like there's nothing to it. When I was going through it, dog, I never got your call. I never asked for nothing, no. But now I want it all. I promise I'ma do it. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags to riches. Rags to riches. Came from rags.